Maggie. Welcome to Experiments in Crafting. Tonight I've got another order from Ice Yarns. A bunch of you had asked for more ice yarns, and a lot of people are super interested in what's coming from that company. So it's a little bit tricky of a company to order from. Not super difficult, but their website is not as intuitive, and there's so many things that I think I myself have gotten like super overwhelmed at just all the options, and then it's a little bit different of an ordering format. You have to order kind of in bulk. So I know a lot of people are very curious because the prices are very low, but like you can't just go to a store and touch everything. So I've ordered a whole bunch more stuff, and I'll try and give you guys my opinion on everything as I open it. Just in case you haven't seen the picture, this is the bundle of yarn that I'm going to be opening. I'm going to give everyone a few minutes to get the email that we're live, and then I'll get that opened. In the meantime, I'll show you what I've been working on. So last week I unboxed a whole bunch of yarn from Premier, and one of the yarns that I had opened was this Premier Medley yarn. I just put all the yarn on top of this, so I don't remember what... I think the name of this color was Greige. But, so this is Premier Medley in Greige, and I've been working on the diagonal shell stitch. And so this is just a stitch repeat over and over again. I may end up doing a tutorial on this video. I don't have any of my screens over here. Just some... There it goes. Okay. All right, so a couple people saying hello. Welcome to everyone who's out there and chatting and saying hi. Christy says she loves my scarf. This is a scarf that I've had for a while. This is done in Melbrigo Rios yarn. I don't remember the name of the colorway, but just a super simple scarf. I have no idea what the pattern is. It looks like 2 rows of double crochet and then sort of an open mesh row. But just a very simple cowl that I have out of this Melbrigo Rios yarn. Yeah, it goes really well with a couple of outfits that I like, and it goes really well with my hair. So, it's one that I throw on quite often, but I like it with this wine-colored, outfit. So, but thank you. Twine Twiddler saying that she absolutely loves ice yarn, so hopefully she's excited to see what we've got here. A lot of people just saying hello, welcome, thank you for joining us tonight. So again, this is what I've been working on this week. I'm about 2 balls in. Well, this is all I've got left of my second ball, so I don't know, like 10 grams or so. And yeah, I think that I bought 5 skeins of this, and I think that's probably about what I'm going to end up using on this blanket. I may or may not do a border. I might have to do a border because this blanket's turning out to be a bit of a parallelogram instead of a rectangle. Like, I might just be able to block it into submission, but right now it's, it actually doesn't look so bad on stream. It looks worse to me. Like, it's way over here compared to this corner. So if I pull this out to there, you can sort of see it's running at an angle, and I'm not picking up or dropping stitches. I think it's just this diagonal shell. It has quite a bit of a tip to it. So, yeah, you can sort of see that it's more parallelogram shape, but I think I could probably block it into rectangular. The other thing with this blanket is it's quite a bit wider than I normally would make a baby blanket. I chained an amount that I seemed to like, and then when I actually worked back into my chains, they expanded quite a bit more than I would have expected. I'm still getting used to starting blankets with a foundation single crochet, which has a lot more stretch than a regular chain. So, yeah, so that's what happened there. So it's a bit wider. I haven't decided if I'm going to fix that by just rotating it and making this the height of my blanket, or if I'm just going to go with it and make it a pretty big baby blanket for me. So anyway, that is where I'm at with that. And that's really the only project I've been working on. So, all right. Oh yeah, I was showing a white blanket that I've been working on as well. Made out of Comfy Cotton blend. I got a full ball into that, and I still am going to finish it. I just got a little bit frustrated with the Comfy Cotton blend. It's a little splittier than I would have hoped. So it's fine. I'm gonna continue working on it. I'm sure that it'll be fine. And I've got an idea for fixing a couple of the really bad splits that I missed way back in the blanket. I think I'm actually just going to take scrap yarn and sew it in and pick up that loop and just try and sew it down, just the same way you would sew a tail down. I don't know if it's going to work, but I'm going to give it a try and see if I can just sew in my tail, or sew in those little split loops so that they don't catch and snag and look terrible. I guess the other option is to just cut it off. It will potentially damage the integrity of the yarn there, but a couple of little pieces of yarn might not actually, like a couple of the plies might actually not make that big of a difference. So I'm not totally sure what I'm going to do there, but I've got one or two really bad splits that have a good loop on the back that I don't want to leave alone. So I got to figure something out to do with those. CZ is agreeing with me that it does split. I've had a couple people comment on the last video where I said it was splitty and said they didn't have too much trouble with it. I think it works up better in an open, like an open-er, lacier pattern with a much larger hook. That's usually true of splitty yarns just in general. The smaller your hook is, the more likely it is to split those stitches. But it seems like some people don't have quite as bad of a time with it. It's been giving me a little bit of havoc and raising a little bit of trouble. So, all right. We probably have quite a few people watching and waiting for the ice yarns, and so I'm gonna try and open this thing. One of the things about the ice yarns is they ship them from Turkey, and they ship them in basically like a heavy-duty garbage bag. I mean, it's a mailer, but because I'm ordering so much, it's pretty packed full. And so I have these little like safety knives that I use to open yarn packages if I can, so that I don't accidentally slice open yarn. They've got the blades like tucked up in here, like in this little thing. So they're pretty good for opening yarn packages so you don't slice your yarn. I have a couple of balls of yarn from a company that clearly somebody used a box cutter to open a package and sliced my yarn, and it's basically every single ply. So there's a little preview of what's to come. I've got the package sliced open, and here we go. Xana's saying that you can request a box and they usually comply. I don't actually mind the like bag of yarn. It's just a little bit tricky to open because it's mostly made of tape. But all right. Yeah, I have not had any trouble. I think I saw somebody said all the bags were split open or something like that, or some issue with shipping. I've had no issues on the 2 orders I've ordered. This is the second order, and I think the last order was roughly the same weight or about the same weight. This is a 2 kilogram order, roughly. So it's a 10 kilogram order? I thought it was a 2 kilogram order. Okay. Apparently it's a 10 kilogram order. It's a really big order of yarn. So, all right. Let's pull out. I'm just going to start grabbing things out of the box, and If I need to go back or I forgot something or you need to know more about a yarn, let me know and I'll dig it back out as we're going. I ordered, because of the way Ice Yarns does their business, you have to order in some quantity usually. So it'll be, say, 50 cents a ball, but you have to order 8 of them. And so it's $4 for the package, which is still a good deal. But unless you get like the mixed lots that they have, you end up with all of one color or one colorway. So I didn't get very many multiples of colors. So like this one I've gotten pink, and it's probably the only color that I bought out of this line of yarn. Some I bought 1 or 2 additional colors because I was pretty confident I was going to like it. But again, if you want to know more about something, let me know, but I probably will go through them relatively fast. Also, I pre-apologize for the noise that this is going to make. It's all packaged in cellophane, so it's going to be a little bit loud from time to time. All right, this is Ice Yarns Alara. It is a 50% 50% cotton, 50% acrylic. Actually, I'm going to set this one here, and I'll pull a second one out so you can kind of see what I'm doing, because I got to pull it back a little closer to me. 50% cotton, 50% acrylic. It is a number 3 DK weight yarn. These are 50-gram balls. I had to buy 8 of them. Each ball is 140 meters. And they recommend a 4mm knitting needle, which usually means about a 4.5mm crochet hook. Ice Yarns is not particularly good about giving crochet hook information, but you can sort of take a leap and guess. There's not much else. I think this is a wash in hot water, no iron, no bleach, is what I think those symbols mean. So I should get a laundry chart and put it on the wall over here. The laundry symbols chart, anyway. So, my initial impression on this yarn is it feels like a pretty soft yarn. I bought a couple of different cotton acrylic blends to make some amigurumi. I was hoping I would find something. I know I won't find any. I know I didn't order anything that's exactly like, what is the name of that? Stonewashed. Sheep Stonewashed, which makes really beautiful amigurumi, and is, I think, an acrylic cotton blend. So I don't think I got anything that will be a direct replacement for that, but I was looking for something that might work. The Sheep Stonewashed makes really pretty amigurumi, but they're very, very specific looking. Like, they have that heathered, stonewashed look to them. And so if you want something a little bit more solid looking, that's not the right yarn. So I was hoping to find something that would substitute for that. So I don't have a name for this color. It doesn't say in here, but it's kind of a raspberry pink. It's pretty dusty rose kind of colored. I'm not sure. It looks like that view's picking the color up pretty well. So a nice, like, dusty rose mauve type of color. So pretty nice feeling yarn. It looks like it should be terribly splitty, but it actually doesn't look like it is. I'm actually having a hard time telling what's going on here. It looks like the plies are loosely held together, but when I try and unply them, they don't fall apart. It's not chainette. It's just super tightly spun and not like I can pick them apart. But when you look at it, it's really, really high twist yarn. I don't know if you can get in tight enough to see that, but it looks like it's going to just pop apart immediately. And it is fighting it pretty hard. Like, I can't untwist it. So if you look along here, I can't untwist it and get it to split the plies apart. They kind of tighten no matter which way I turn them. But they're pretty hard clung together, but you can see it's definitely, sorry, It's definitely a plied yarn. It looks like an 8-ply yarn. So there's 4 plies here, and each of those plies is a 2-ply. So it's a little 8-ply yarn. Pretty fine plies if it's still only a DK weight. But feels like a very nice yarn. It's very soft. It doesn't have a lot of hair on the surface either, so it should make a pretty nice yarn for amigurumi. All right. This is interesting. I don't even remember this. Pretty. Ooh, it's soft. All right. So there's a good view of the colors in it. All right. So this is Ice Yarn's Rosetto. It is 30% wool, 70% acrylic. It's a number 3 lightweight or DK weight yarn. It comes in 50-gram balls. This is 200 meters. They recommend a 4mm knitting needle. So again, probably about a 4.5mm crochet hook. And again, no color information. And again, they are saying to wash it in warm water, no bleach, no iron. I think they have all of the same care instructions on all of their yarns, if I remember correctly from the last time. There's a big old fuzz on here, but other than that, this yarn is super, super soft. Very silky. It's got a ton of hair on the surface. It does look like it's multiple plies, so it should be reasonably strong. Those plies don't look particularly well spun. It's actually hard to tell. It might not actually be multiple plies. It might just be multicolored fiber spun together. Very reminiscent of Red Heart Roll With It Melange, or whatever I opened last week. The something Frenzy. Classic Shades Frenzy from Universal. But probably softer than either of those. It's very, very soft. It's really nice feeling yarn. Again, this is Rosetto, Roseto. I'm going to chuck one of these at you. You can feel it. It's very soft. Lot of people liking that one. Tracy's saying that she has the Rosetto yarn and it works up very nicely. So that's good to know. It's really pretty multicolored yarn. I got a colorway that's got some like turquoise and magenta and orange and a lot of navy mixed in with all of that. But it's really squishy and soft. I'm really enjoying that one. Might not be perfect for beginners. Like I said, has a lot of halo. But is a pretty nice yarn. All right, so I've got the Rosetto's cousin, Rosetto Worsted here. Looks like I had to buy 4 of the Rosetto Worsted and 8 of the Rosetto, though they end up being the same weight, I think, because I think these were 50-gram balls. So I had to buy 8 50-gram balls, but these are 100-gram balls, and I had to buy 4 of those. So it's 400 grams either way. So this is Rosetto Worsted. It feels just as nice, though is quite a bit heavier, which should be expected. There's a lot of stray fiber on these balls. That's probably not necessarily a bad thing, but it is noteworthy. It probably sheds like a beast as you work with it. Like, you'll probably end up covered in fuzz, but it does look like a very nice yarn. I'm really actually very surprised on how soft it is. It's a really nice feeling wool. Again, 30% wool, 70% acrylic, 100-gram balls. These are 200 meters. Is number 4 worsted weight yarn. They're recommending a 5mm knitting needle, which puts you at about a 5.5mm crochet hook, which is an eye hook. And so that's pretty standard for a worsted weight yarn. This color has like an emerald green, a purple, and a light blue, all mixed again with navy. So I don't think the navy was mandatory for the Rosetto, but apparently that's what I went with. It was both kinds have navy. So toss that off to the side. This is a weird looking one. So on Tuesdays, Ice Yarns has a special, or their yarns are more on sale than normal. And so we ordered these last Tuesday, and I was very tired, and so I actually don't remember most of what I ordered. I know it was a lot of things, but towards the end of shopping, I was pretty tired and kind of have forgotten all of what I ordered. So it's about as much of a surprise for me as it is for you guys. This yarn is called Monaco. It's a number 4 medium weight yarn. They recommend a 5mm knitting needle, 5.5mm crochet hook would be appropriate. It is 50% acrylic, 50% polyamide, which is nylon. And this is a pretty weird yarn. It's surprisingly not soft. There shouldn't really be anything to be all that scratchy in a nylon. I guess scratchy is not really the word, but it's a little rougher than I would have expected, especially for something so like baby colored. You expect it to be super plush, and it's not ultra pleasant. It's a pretty weird construction. I don't know that I would call this chainette. I mean, it probably is, but it's almost more like braided. It's a very aggressive chainette, if that's what it is. It's probably closer to like an I-cord. But I don't know if you guys can see that super well, but it's very, very big chainette. And it's fine, but it almost feels starched or something. Like maybe it would get much, much softer with washing, but it's not the best. I think it would work up perfectly fine. There is a little bit of hair on the surface, but not anything that I'd be real worried about. It's not as springy as I would have thought. I mean, it's okay, but mostly it's the chain collapsing. Usually on an acrylic nylon blend, you'd expect it to be pretty springy, and it's not really. Val's asking if it might be good for washcloths. Yeah, I could see it being okay for washcloths. It has no natural fiber in it, so you shouldn't use it for hot pads or anything like that. But a washcloth would probably be fine. So it won't absorb water like a natural fiber, because like plastics don't absorb water as much. But I mean, you use microfiber cloths, and those have no natural fiber. I think the chain structure would probably dry quickly and also hold water like between the chains. But yeah, I mean, generally you choose cotton for a dishcloth because cotton sucks up a lot of water. The downside to that is cotton holds on to water forever and takes a long time to dry. So this is an interesting yarn. I don't dislike it, but I'm not in love with it. You want to feel this? It's pretty weird. Sorry, I threw real low. Yeah, it's got kind of like a starched feel to it. I don't know. Like I said, I have hopes that it will soften up pretty readily with washing, but it almost feels like it's got something on the outside. Like it's a little bit stiff. All right. For that yarn, again, it was 50 grams, and I did have to buy 8 of those. And that was Monaco. All right, what else do we have? Really pretty. This is very reminiscent of, what was the name of that? Plymouth Solstice, I think? Not nearly as soft, though that was a blend, I think, that contained cashmere. Not a bad feeling yarn. It's pretty soft, but it's nothing like Plymouth Solstice. I think that was baby alpaca and It was a weird blend. It was like alpaca, cashmere, and like merino. It was super nice blend. This is a 50/50 wool acrylic blend. It is 50-gram ball, 65 meters. They're calling it a number 4 worsted weight. 65 meters for 50 grams. That's probably a little heavier than worsted weight. It's at least Aran, because that's only 120 meters, 130 meters for 100 grams. Yeah, it's definitely a little heavier than a worsted weight yarn would be. Yeah, it's a really pretty olive green. I think it's what I hoped it was going to be. Like, it looks very nice. It is not, like I said, it's not amazingly soft. I probably set myself up for a little bit of disappointment when I compared it to Solstice right out the door, but it's not as soft as Solstice, but it's still a pretty nice feeling yarn. But yeah, I think this would be a really nice yarn for a sweater or a scarf or something like that. It's plenty soft enough to be near your face. It's not scratchy. But it doesn't have anything in it that's like super plush and soft. It's just a wool acrylic blend. So it is nice that it's a 50/50 blend. I don't actually... It's been a while since I blocked anything that was chainette. I don't know if the chainette prevents you from getting as much out of the block or, interferes with that in any way. So, because I was thinking 50% wool should take a really nice block, but then I was trying to remember what the last thing that I blocked that was chainette construction and if that matters at all.
Well, is it actually wool in the body of it, or is it filled?
It is not a filled tube. It's just basically a knitted chain or like an I-cord. This is a more typical one with a much finer chain. So you can't, you can see that it's chain, but it's much smaller. Unlike the Monaco, which was like braided. This is a more typical chainette style yarn. Helen just joining. Helen, you haven't missed much. I think we've only opened maybe 4 yarns. So, and we've got lots and lots to go. So again, this was, sorry, I don't actually think I said the name of this because it's, yes, this is Airwool Worsted. This was one of the ones that was super, super cheap last Tuesday. I think these were advertised at 37 cents a ball. So for the whole package here, it was like $2. $2.99. So Airwool Worsted feels like a very nice yarn. If you are looking for sweater quantities of a yarn, this is actually a really nice option. I think it would give you a nice sweater. And for 50% wool at 30-something cents a ball, like, you can't beat it. So even though Ice Yarns does have kind of steep shipping, if you split it across an okay sized order, I think for this order we averaged about $1.70 a ball, $1.68. I don't remember what I told you. I messaged it, but it was less than $2 a ball for every ball that we ordered here tonight.
How many balls?
170 balls this time. So a lot of yarn this time. All right. Dusty, welcome. Nordine, welcome. That's an interesting idea. Nordine's suggesting that all of the YouTubers collaborate and make a big blanket. There was a project actually several years back that a crocheter, I think, was sick or something like that, and a whole bunch of designers each made a 12-inch square, and then somebody sewed them all together, and so they sent this crochet designer a gift, and it was each designer had worked on their own square, and I think it was either a 3x4 or like a 4x6. And yeah, so it was a nice gesture, and they all just worked on a portion of it, and then each of those patterns is available. So it was kind of a cool idea. So
$1.46 per ball average, including shipping.
Okay, so including shipping, we averaged $1.46 per ball here. So obviously that total's brought down by balls only costing 37 cents. But some of them were quite a bit more, and that all sort of averages out across the whole order. And then shipping feels very steep when you're paying for it, but in the end, it really, at $1.47 a ball, you can't really beat it. So, all right, moving on. I think this is more of the air wool in another color. I think this one was advertised as purple. It is probably indigo is a better color name for it. I'm having a hard time, even under really good lighting, telling if it's blue or purple. And so, in my book, that becomes indigo. I convince myself it's definitely blue, and then in the same breath, I can convince myself it's definitely purple. My husband can probably tell me for sure with a color map, but it looks. I'm gonna go with indigo here, though I think it's sold under purple. This is another ball of air wool worsted. Again, 50% wool, 50% acrylic. That chainette construction, exactly the same as the stuff that I just showed you, but this is in a dark purple blue rather than the olive green. So I won't spend too much time on this, but still a very nice feeling yarn. Not, like I said, not the plushest, softest yarn I've ever had in my hands. Is very similar in weight and look to the Plymouth Solstice. I think that's what it was called, Solstice, right? Very similar, but not in hand. Plymouth Solstice wins hands down there, but again, it is cashmere and baby alpaca, so pretty hard to compete with that. What else do we have? All right, I'll open this guy up. All right, so this is... All right. This is Magic Glitz. It is 95% acrylic, 5% Lurex, which is that shiny bit that you're seeing on the outside. It's a number 3 lightweight yarn. They're recommending a 4 to 4.5 millimeter knitting needle, which means probably a 4.5 to a 5 millimeter crochet hook. 100 grams and 360 meters. That should put it squarely in the DK weight range. Really pretty colors in here. This is going to make either some very nice hats or a pretty nice looking baby blanket. Though would be a little spang-dangly for a baby blanket with all of the glitter. This has some really cool colors in it. I like the gray and white, different tones of gray in there. And then you've got the different mauve purples in here. So like a really gray purple. But there's these little hints of teal in here that I really like. They kind of set the whole ball apart. So, really, really nice colors here. So this is Magic Glitz. One of the things that if you spend some time on the Ice Yarns website, you'll notice that there are a lot of yarns with similar names. Magic seems to be roughly their like house acrylic brand. You can get Magic in a lot of different yarns, and then they have sort of a tag at the end. In this case, Glitz means that it's got this sparkly stuff, but they did have Magic yarns without the sparkle. And I think I've got some in the bag, but if you're kind of looking around, most of the colors are available with and without sparkle. So if you like one in the sparkle, I am positive this exact set of colors came in the Magic colors without the sparkle on the outside. My initial impression is that the sparkle is not terrible feeling. I'm pretty picky when it comes to sparkle. I really like the way it looks, and I generally hate the way it feels. I can feel the sparkles, so it's not quite as nice as like a Stellina blended in, but they're pretty soft. as opposed to, what was the name of that recent yarn from Lion Brand? Date Night. Date Night is, I've got it over here. Date Night is absolutely gorgeous, but all I can feel is the sparkle. So this is Date Night. I think the Magic Glitz is a little bit softer. Date Night was really well constructed. The sparkly bits are worked into a chainette style so they can't move around. Glitz is my least favorite implementation of sparkly things, which is just simply wrapped around the whole yarn. So you can see here, the sparkly stuff is just wrapped around, but it doesn't feel, I say that. I was going to say it doesn't feel super loose, but I can see that it is just totally wrapped around there, and you can slide it up and down the yarn if you work at it a little bit. So it's going to cause a little bit of trouble if you start splitting your stitches or if the sparkly stuff starts moving up and down. What I found with yarns like this is the sparkle tends to bunch up, and then you get like a chunk of sparkle that you have to pull all through one stitch. And then you have some barer spots. So it usually doesn't stay as even as it is on the ball as you're working it. Not always. Some yarns work up just fine, but that's been my general experience, which is one of the things that I really liked about Date Night. But Date Night, all I can feel is the sparkle. It's just not what I had hoped. Tracy Hellson, she's using Magic Light for a large puff stitch blanket, and it's soft and very nice. So I think I've got Magic Light within eye shot, so I'll pull that out here. What's that? All right. Wanda asked a question that I've had a lot of people ask before. How do I determine the yarn weight based on yardage and grams? It's something that I just sort of keep in my head. I know offhand that 100 grams of fingering weight yarn should be about 450 yards. That I just always keep, somewhere locked in my memory. If it's more yardage, it's a finer yarn. If it's less yardage, it's a heavier yarn. I also keep in mind that worsted weight yarn is always about 220. And if you think about it, Cascade 220 comes in 100-gram balls. And so that 220 in Cascade refers to the yardage in the ball. So Cascade 220 is worsted and it's 100-gram balls. 450 is about fingering weight. And so you've got to get two weights in there in between. And so in my head, I just have rough numbers of where they're at. But if the yardage is significantly less than 220, I know pretty well that it's not worsted. You've got like a 40-yard band around those numbers. And so you can see we've got the yarn weight scale up. And one of the things that's really important to understand with that scale is yarn weight is totally a gradient. So there are some yarns that are just dead between a DK and a worsted weight, and they, you might have to work them up with a weird hook size, or they might end up being a little more open or a little less open than you expected. But that's basically how I just keep the numbers more or less in my head. But I always try and take it to 100 grams. So that's just the easiest place to figure things off of. And then again, I just know off the top of my head that, worsted weight yarn is 220 and fingering weight is 450. And there's basically two divisions in between. And so a DK weight should be like the upper 200s to low 300s. And a sport weight yarn should be the mid 300s to low 400s or somewhere about there. And then once you start getting out of those ranges, that's more or less how I keep track of things in my head. that it is important to know that those weights are mostly based off of acrylic and wool. If you have really odd fibers, those numbers start to break down a little bit. Likewise, if you have really odd constructions or thick and thin yarn, like things can be a little bit weird there. But for the most part, wool and acrylic end up about the same as each other. I think cotton is a little bit heavier, if I remember correctly. But which means that your yardage could potentially be a little bit shorted. So 100 grams of cotton, I think, can be like 200-ish or something like that, more average. I'm trying to remember which way it slides the scale, but hopefully that helps a little bit. I know it's not super useful. I don't have like a formula I can give you, but like just if you keep some basic numbers in your head, you can kind of get a gauge for where those yarns are supposed to be. But like I said before, a yarn that only has 165 meters for 50 gram, or sorry, for what am I? I'm talking in circles here. It was 65, which would be 130 for 100 grams. 130 is not a big enough number for it to be worsted weight. Yeah, it means it's too heavy for the yardage that I would expect. So I would expect 220. It's only 160 or 170. And so it's not high enough to be that yardage is not high enough to be in the worsted weight region. So it's probably in the bulky weight. And if I was going to work that up, I would work it up as if it was bulky and ignore the labeling in that case. All right. Let's see. Tracy's saying that she thinks Magic Light is the basic DK acrylic by them. And so I've got some Magic Light here. Kind of a weird color. This was a lot prettier online, actually, I think. I don't dislike it, but it's got kind of like a weird brown in the middle. And I knew it was supposed to have brown, but I thought it was a little bit more chocolatey. And this is a little bit more purple. And also olive at the same time somehow. All right. This is Magic Light. It's 100% acrylic. 100 grams, 360 meters. It's number 3 lightweight DK yarn. They're recommending a 4 to 4.5 millimeter knitting needle once again, which puts you at a 4.5 to 5 millimeter crochet hook, ballpark. And same wash instructions, warm water, no bleach, no iron. Yeah, this is a pretty basic feeling acrylic. Pretty nice and soft, and nothing jumping off the wall at me as like super special. It's not a particularly shiny acrylic, which may or may not be a good thing depending on the project you're looking for. It's got a pretty matte finish to it. Unlike something like DK Colors where it has shine to it, this is pretty flat looking by comparison. Which might be a good thing. You might not want something super shiny, but just a note. So I think this side you can see the colors pretty well here. Kind of a lighter pink and then a lot of like lilac-y mauve colors. And this is where I was saying the brown is, in person, it's a lot more olive purple than it is brown. Like, I don't really know how to describe what I'm seeing here, but it's very clearly made from this teal and this purple meeting and not like from brown pigmentation, which could give it a nice gradient effect if they fade that out nicely. And you can see there's kind of like an olive section here. So it might make a pretty nice looking gradient, but it's not as chocolatey as it looked online. So maybe a tiny bit disappointing, but still very pretty looking colors. So, World Peas loves my hair and says hello, so welcome and thank you very much. My hair is due for some retouching, but I've been keeping it up with just a purple color at home, but normally it's a lot of colors and I'm missing that a little bit, but thank you for the compliment. And Wanda thanking me for the explanation, just not that it was potentially super helpful, but yeah, just explaining how I keep track of the numbers and their sizes. All right, so Magic Light is fine. I don't think anything that I'm like over the moon about, but I don't have any major opposition to. Magic Glitz is very pretty. I like this color a lot more, so that's probably skewing my opinion a little bit. But again, you guys know I don't love sparkle wrapped yarns as much as I love the other styles. This one is seemingly okay. The glittery section is not super scratchy or grabby, though it does move up and down the yarn without too much problem. So, just keep that in mind. All right. This one is called Dream. So much loud cellophane. No. All right. Actually, by look, I thought that this was cotton, but it is apparently 100% acrylic. It is a 100-gram ball, 220 meters. They're claiming that makes it a number 3 weight yarn. What I just told you was that 220 meters puts it at a 4 weight. Huh? Yeah, I guess it's 220 yards is... So yards to meters, the conversion is roughly equal, but it does favor one direction. I think the conversion is 0.91 times yards gets you meters. So it could be a DK weight. It's right on the edge, certainly. It looks like a DK weight just by handling it. It's pretty fine for a worsted weight, so I'm gonna go with it and say that it's probably a DK weight. Very pretty color. It's got a nice shine to it. It's not very soft. It's very reminiscent of ZZ Twist or what is the other one that was just like that? Beautiful You, I think was what it was called. Both were Lion brand yarns. ZZ Twist was an opposite twist for crocheters. This is not a Z Twist. This is an S Twist yarn. So it is not a Z Twist yarn like ZZ Twist. Not a very plush yarn, and neither was ZZ Twist, but I really liked it because it had a lot of stitch definition. It looks pretty splitty. These plies don't look like they're holding together particularly well. If I can get a hold of the end. Yeah, you can see the plies are barely held together on the end. They're not really interested in interacting with each other at all. They kind of twisted the bejesus out of this yarn, and it's kind of fighting back a little bit. So, I would expect this to be relatively splitty while you work with it. It looks like it's 3-plied, and those plies have 4 plies apiece. So each of these plies is 4 plies, and then there's 3 of those twisted together. And like I said, it's got a ton of twist to it. It's going to have a insane amount of stitch definition, and it's not going to be particularly soft. What I really liked ZZ Twist for was fingerless gloves. They just looked really nice and had like a really nice, just like you could see every stitch, and they just looked really fancy, like they were bought at a store rather than homemade. And I suspect that this yarn will have a very similar look to it. It would probably also be perfectly fine for things like a shawl or like a nice scarf. This definitely has a spring feel to it, or even a summery feel to it. Could be a good beach cover-up type of yarn, something like that. This is not a warm, cozy yarn, though. Like, it has no fluff to it. There's not a, like, single hair to be seen. It will have no warmth or, like, coziness to it. But it will be a really nice accessory yarn. It could also be a very nice amigurumi yarn. If it came in solids, I have a feeling that this was the only color that was available in this, or at least the only one I remember seeing. Again, this is Dream. So, this might be one that they were phasing out for whatever reason. So, Val said she made arm warmers with ZZ Twist. Yeah, I made, like I said, fingerless gloves. It's a really pretty yarn, but not a cozy yarn. It's not something you want to, like, snuggle into. This cowl, I just want to, like, snuggle into. This yarn is not like that. This yarn will just look really nice, which has a place. Don't get me wrong. Like, not every yarn has to be cozy and snuggly. There is a time and a place for most yarns, and non-cozy yarns are good for a lot of things. So, let's see. What else do we have? A very white yarn. This is Ice Yarn's Natural Garden. This is 40% bamboo, 35% cotton, 25% linen. It's a 50-gram ball, 150 meters. They are calling it a 2-weight yarn, which would be a sport weight. And they're recommending a 3mm knitting needle, which would be roughly a 3.5 or E hook for crochet. This is a very, very slippery yarn. So it's 40% bamboo. The bamboo tends to be rayon. So they turn it into a man-made cellulosic. And so it's from cellulose, but it goes through some processing. And so when they say bamboo, usually what they mean is one of the man-made cellulosics. I think rayon is typically the one that comes from bamboo. So it is super slippery feeling and really nice. This would make an absolutely stunning shawl for a wedding. And potentially if I can convince my sister that she needs or wants one, maybe I'd make one for her. But absolutely, like, would just look really nice. It's got this bright white. I think Natural Garden only came in like 6 colors, and they were all, I think it was like white, black, rose, and like another red, and maybe like a tan. So 5 colors. It was almost no options in this. But I went with white thinking that if nothing else, it probably is dyeable in white. Because it's all natural fibers, it is going to dye weird. So if you think you're going to get a solid color out of it, I think you're probably going to be disappointed. Because cotton is going to take dye differently than linen and differently than the bamboo. But I think they should all take RIT dye. So just like regular old machine RIT dye, or, on the pot, on the stove in a pot dye. But I went with white for that reason. But now that I've actually got it in my hands, I could see a really nice bridal shawl made with this. It's so slippery. Like, I just want to keep petting it because it's so smooth and so slippery. So I'm actually very happy with this. There is no trace of the linen in here. Like, it doesn't feel linen-y at all. All I can feel is the bamboo. It actually doesn't really feel all that cottony either. I think the cotton is very, very fine. If I can get an end of this, we could investigate. pretty loosely plied. Yeah, so it's basically like threads. So the cotton in here is going to be less fluffy. It's not going to be like dishcloth cotton. It's going to be more like cotton sewing thread. So you can see here, it unplies pretty readily. So it's going to be splitty. It's a 2-ply yarn, and I think that each of those plies is made of 4 plies. But yeah, it's very nice feeling yarn. Might be a little bit splitty. Should be no trouble pulling stitches back out or anything like that. There's not an ounce of hair to be seen. So shouldn't be any trouble to frog your stitches if you need to. A yarn this white, though, is probably not going to stay that white for very long, is the only major concern with it. It's bright bleach white right now. Though, given that it is all natural fibers, you should be able to bleach it, even though it probably says not to. Because they all say not to, but should be able to be bleached back to bright white. Let's see, what do we have here? I think this is another one that was ultra cheap last week. This is Ice Yarn's Ribbon Wool. And it is a flat tape style yarn. So this is very similar to those filled tubes that I've been showing you from Ice Yarns, but it has no filling in it. Sorry, I'll come down. So yeah, this is basically just a knitted tube, and they could have filled it with stuffing, and it would have made it very much like Rockstar and Rockstar Colors and all the yarns, Morella, they were all filled tubes, but they just didn't fill this. So this is just a tube. This should work up relatively similar to round yarn. I don't think you'll notice too much that it's tape. But it might work up quite a bit less plush. So it, instead of being fluffy and having like depth, it's going to be flat. So it might make a very nice shawl or something like that. It might not be as puffy as you want for something like a cowl. It might lay a little bit flat. Very similar construction to the Replay yarn, which was the Tencel yarn that I showed from Lion Brand. Has a really nice feel to it. It's 50% wool, 50% acrylic. These are 50-gram balls, 65 meters. They're calling it a number 4 weight yarn. This one's a hard one to tell because it's going to work up a little bit weirder than other yarns. But generally, like I said, I probably would put that in heavier than a worsted weight category. But the odd construction makes a difference. They're recommending a 5mm knitting needle, 5.5mm crochet hook is roughly correct. And again, hot water, no iron, no bleach. There's a symbol on several of these yarns. Do you know what this, like, yin-yang arrow symbol means? It's like 2 swirling, one black, one white, arrows. They look like some sort of recycling or renewed symbol, but see if my husband can get us an answer on that. But I'm not familiar with that laundry symbol. I don't think it's a tumble dry or something like that. But pretty nice yarn. I think, again, this is one of the ones that I think was in like the 37-cent category or something in that ballpark. So, really nice yarn. Would be perfectly fine for any large project that you wanted to make up. I really don't know how these flat tape with no filling end up working up. I should make something relatively large out of them just to see how it works up. I could see a very open cardigan being made out of this really nicely. I was thinking something open for summer, but with the 50% wool, I don't know if you want 50% wool in your summer clothes, but a nice cardigan might be might be the perfect thing for this. And at 37 cents or whatever I paid for this a ball, it's worth it to buy in sweater quantities. Scotty's asking if I've heard of a name, and I am not familiar with that name. Let's see. And I think otherwise I'm caught up on comments. This is a weird one. So this is one that I was able to buy a single ball of. And again is this flat ribbon style tape. So this is Jumbo Cotton Ribbon. It's super not soft. It's not bad, but like not plush at all. It's basically just sewing thread. It's it's basically sewing thread with no spool in the middle, except that it's a giant tape. So, but there's no squish to sewing thread, and there's no squish to this either. It's just 100% cotton tube, I think. I think this is 100% cotton. Yep, 100%. Oh, recycled cotton is what this claims. Yeah, so this claims to be 100% recycled cotton. It's a 250-gram ball. It's 150 meters. They say it's a super bulky yarn. They're recommending between an 8 and 12 millimeter knitting needle. So just some giant crochet hook is about the best I can tell you here. But yeah, so this is very, very rigid. I was thinking small basket is the target for this yarn. 250 grams is less than I thought it was going to be. Like, I just got the one. I think it was like $1.99 as the list price on it. Again, across all of my yarns, I paid about $1.50 a ball. So some of them were significantly more. Some of them were super, super cheap. And so it averaged out with shipping to about $1.50 a ball. So, but I think list price on this was $1.99, and it only had a couple colors in stock. So, Twine Twiddler is saying that she's made a purse out of this yarn. This is exactly the right yarn for a market bag, a purse, a basket, something that you want to kind of hold its shape and just kind of look nice and bright. So, it probably would do fine for like a rug or something like that as well. Wouldn't be super plush, but if you wanted like a bathroom rug, it should dry relatively quickly because it's such fine yarn with a lot of airspace in between. So should be pretty absorbent and then dry quickly. Because it's all natural fiber, it would probably also be fine for things like hot pots or hot pads, trivets, placemats, table runner, things like that. So, Yaya Creations is saying that they made the prettiest sweater from ZZ Twist from a YouTube tutorial. So, if you're looking for an alternative to ZZ Twist, this Dream yarn is possibly a good stand-in for that. I don't know where ZZ Twist is on Lion Brand's radar, if it's still available or if they discontinued that or what happened with it. I know I haven't seen it in a store in a while, but that doesn't mean you can't get it. But it was a cool yarn, and I liked the stitch definition on it. So, and yeah, Yaya Creations, I think a rug is probably a good option out of this. There's a lot of options for like household types of things. I don't think that this is a yarn that you would want to make anything you're going to wear out of. I don't know that it's going to come out the way that you want it to. But it might be fine. It came in a lot of bright colors. It might be fine for something like a cover-up or a really open sweater. But with a yarn this large, you're going to run into some drape issues if you work it into anything with too tight of a hook. So, Wanda's saying ZZ Twist is still available from Lion Brand, so that's good to know. All right. I cannot believe how much yarn is still left in here. I need to start talking faster.
Apparently that 2 arrows in a circle is another version of the recycling something.
Okay.
It makes recycled plastic.
Okay. So a lot of these yarns that I'm pulling out have a symbol that is 2 arrows sort of swirling together in a ball. And what we're seeing online is that it might be an alternate recycling symbol and indicate that it may contain recycled plastic content. So some of the yarns that I have opened over here have had that. For example, I don't know if we can get in tight enough on the symbol, but it's on this package of yarn here. So this symbol here I was not familiar with. We're going to switch cameras so you can see it. So this symbol here, which is 2 arrows swirling together, apparently indicates that it contains some amount of recycled plastic, though it does not disclose what percentage. So,
Oh wait,
no, maybe not.
it's called the green dot.
Yeah.
It says a company can label its packaging with the green dot even if the product is not recyclable. It means the company has donated money towards the recycling of packaging somewhere in the world.
So it's okay. It's not that it contains recycled content. It's that even though the product is not recyclable, that they've donated towards recycling. So there's some sort of confusing mumbo jumbo around that symbol, but it has something to do with recycling. Wow, this is terrible. I don't know what I'm going to use this for. It is possibly one of the weirdest things I've ever handled. So, this is Violina? Violino. Having a hard time. Like violin with an O at the end. It is a weird tape yarn. I wish you could hear it. It's like crinkling against itself. It's really super odd yarn. It's kind of like, yeah, like yeah. It's really odd yarn. It's a really fine tape yarn. They're calling it a number 3 weight, 50 grams, 100 meters. They're recommending a 4mm knitting needle, roughly a 4.5mm crochet hook. It's very odd. It's shockingly stiff. It feels like raffia. Like for anyone who's ever worked or dealt with raffia, which is like a straw, basic. Not a straw, but like straw. It's like a flat decorative ribbon. They put it on like wreaths and stuff. But this is a really odd yarn. I have no idea what I would recommend you do with this. I don't know what I would use this for at all. I think this was one that was super, super cheap. And I got it in a couple colors. There's probably a good use for it. Maybe it's weaving into a tablecloth or something like that. I don't have a good feel for what I'm going to do with this. It's 100% acrylic. And it's super odd. It was dirt cheap though, I'm pretty sure. So, I mean, they're all pretty cheap, but it was interesting and I really liked it online and it's odd here now. It's not scratchy. I just don't have it's like hard. And like inflexible. It's very slippery, but yeah, I don't really have a suggestion here. A wide brim garden hat. It might turn into that. I'm not sure if it's got enough structure to hold itself up. It might, maybe. Yeah, I could see that being an option, given that it, like, this loop can hold itself up here. If you worked it with a pretty small hook, It might make some baskets or something like that. Maybe if you hold two together, it would be thick enough to make a basket. But housewares is the best I'm coming up with right now. Maybe placemats or mug rugs or also known as coasters. Things like that. I'm drawing a blank here. I guess you could probably justify something super open and lacy. Might look nice in this. So a really lacy scarf, possibly a cover up for a bathing suit. But if you work this up tight, it's going to be like a board. I have a feeling.
On a project on Ravelry where somebody made a corner-to-corner cardigan.
Somebody made a corner-to-corner cardigan in this on Ravelry. I mean, people do all sorts of things with all sorts of yarns. It's not probably what I would have gone with for that. It feels like straw. Like it's not scratchy, but it's the least plush thing I can think of. And like you can hear the acrylic move against itself. You should feel this. It's weird. I do think I have that in... Oh, I actually have that in 2 more colors.
This
So...
is really acrylic? It doesn't
Yeah.
feel like acrylic.
It doesn't feel like anything I've ever felt. So...
It feels just like hay, except it doesn't leave stuff on your hand.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like straw. It's just... It feels like raffia. So anything you'd use raffia for, this is probably the same use. And I thought it looked really cool online, and so I actually bought this one in a couple of colors. And so, probably a mistake on my part, but we'll see what happens with it. Maybe I'll come up with some really cool use for it. So I got it in this really dark purple. I've got it in pink, and I bought it in gray. So, I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but it looked cooler. I wonder if these all feel the same, or... Sometimes when you add a ton of dye to something, it feels stiff like that. So the gray actually does feel a bit better, but not by any appreciable margin. Let's see what the pink feels like. The pink feels very similar to the gray. So the purple definitely feels the worst. It probably has the most dye on it. To get it that dark color or something like that, but yeah. Colleen suggesting maybe it softens up when you wash it. Here's hoping. I'm not really sure. Like I said, it's not that it's scratchy. It's just stiff and weird. I don't know. It's an odd one for sure. So that's Violina, not my favorite so far, but Violino, yeah. Violin with an O at the end. Let's see, what else do we have? Oh, I've got a couple of these that I can pull out. I thought I bought 3 of these. This one? No? It's this one. Okay. So, this is... Sure. Val wanted to see the gray up close. So let's pop back over to that. And thanks for asking. If anyone wants to see anything up in particular, let me know. So this is the gray. We're going to zoom in. It's a really pale gray. And unfortunately... Ice Yarns is not particularly good about giving any information on their packaging about colors, so there's not even like a color number or anything I can tell you to go look up. It's just pale gray. But it doesn't, like normally there's like a barcode, and then it says like a number or a name or something, and they don't do that. So, it's a very pretty gray. And like I said, I have no idea what I'm going to use it for, but it's interesting. and definitely probably the weirdest yarn I bought, I think. So, not totally sure why I bought it in 3 colors, but we'll see. Xana says the numbers on the bag. Ah, yeah, so there is. Light gray. 55722. Okay, so light gray is that color. Yaya Creations is saying that's why they like to watch unboxings. Yeah, that's part of the reason that we do this. Part of it's just fun to order a lot of yarn and then open it on stream because you guys like to watch it. But it's really good information and a really good way to give you like my initial impressions on yarn right away. So I order a bunch of different stuff and then get to tell you guys all about it. So this yarn that I've got in front of me now is Baby Hombre. I'm going to open all of these up because they're pretty cool. They are every bit as soft as I would have hoped. Wow, they're super, super soft. So these again are 100% these are 100% acrylic, though they are anti-pilling acrylic. These are stranded yarns, so there's no twist to these. Which I've never seen a stranded yarn not sold in a cake. So I'm a little bit worried about starting to use these because if you don't grab all of your strands all at the same time, you're going to make a gigantic mess. So I'm wondering if they did not. So what I was wondering is if they put a knot in the strands on the end and there is no knot, which I think is a bad idea. So I think all companies, like big box companies, should put a knot in the end of stranded yarns because I don't think people always know what they're supposed to do with a stranded yarn. And so if you started pulling on just one strand, you would quickly turn this ball into a complete and total disaster. And if you got too far, I don't even know how you go about fixing it. You'd almost have to cut the outside off and start again. So I don't know what the best way to get like the word out about stranded yarns is, but there are a couple companies that sell it at like the big box level, and if you don't know what you're getting into, that being said, they're not that difficult to work with. It's just that if you didn't know what you bought was stranded, you're gonna regret it really quickly. So this is the dark green brown colors. And so you can see, I don't know that I would call this dark green. It's kind of a medium mossy green and a really nice brown. And then there's a center ball here. And what I was really curious about, and it looks like it's pretty consistent throughout. So I was wondering if it was a gradient in the center or if it was just all the same. And it's looking roughly the same throughout. I don't see any major preference towards one color on either end. So what this ends up working into, you start with one color and then you move to the middle one and then you move to the end and you get kind of a nice gradient look. And Ice Yarns does not normally have worked up projects on their website, but if you look up this Baby Hombre, it's all baby sweaters worked from one ball to the other, and it's super, super cute. I ended up buying 3 different colors. I probably would have bought more if they had more in stock. So I can't get over how soft and like silky feeling this yarn is. It's really insanely nice feeling. I'm going to toss you one of these. Oh, yeah, I almost hit the microphone. Okay, 100% anti... Huh? Oh, I did hit the microphone. Whoops. 100% anti-pilling acrylic, 100 grams, 200 meters, 4 to 5 millimeter knitting needle, number 4 weight yarn. These stranded yarns are very difficult to tell what you're exactly getting for a weight. Yeah. Number 4, it looks like 6 plies are in here. In this mixed yarn, 3 of the plies are brown and 3 of them are green. So it's just a 50-50 color match. So 6 here are all green, 3 green, 3 brown, and then in the brown it's 6 brown.
Feels really warm for acrylic.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's warm and I don't know. It's just so silky. Very, very nice feeling yarn. Will make a very nice present for something. I also picked up Lilac Purple, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's lilac on one side, purple on the other, and a lilac purple blend in the middle. And then I also have Light Orchid Burgundy. And those are probably fair representations of the colors here. Burgundy on one end and kind of like a nice dusty rose on the other end with a 50-50 blend in the center. So, 300 grams total. When you order these from Ice Yarns, you get one of each, so you don't have to buy them in, triplicate or something like that. You just get these 3 balls is the unit. And I want to say these were somewhere in the ballpark of like $5 to $6 or something for the lot. All right. We are making some progress in here. This was a weird yarn, and I decided I just had to have it because. So this yarn is called Baby Antibacterial. And it is 100% antibacterial Dralon. Dralon. Dralon? Maybe we'll go with Dralon. It's a number 2 fine weight yarn, sport weight yarn. 100 grams, 280 meters. 3.5 to 4 millimeter knitting needle is what they recommend. So roughly a 4 to 4.5 millimeter crochet hook is going to be correct.
Dralon is a trade name.
Okay, so Dralon is like a trademarked acrylic. So it's just 100% acrylic, but it has some sort of antibacterial properties. They suggested this for baby projects so that they, aren't harboring bacteria, I guess. Apparently Ice Yarns thinks babies are gross and need antibacterial yarn. It was a pretty sage green color. If nothing else, it'll go well with some sort of amigurumi or something that I end up doing. Probably not enough in this bag to make a blanket. You probably would have to have 2 of them for blanket quantities. They did only need 4, like you only had to buy 4 balls of this. 400 grams is roughly the amount that they want you to buy. So it's generally 8 50-gram balls or 400 gram balls. So just, I guess, keep that in mind. All right, this is Silk Cotton. I thought I had bought, yeah, Creations. I've had that in my cart a while. I love lightweight yarn for drape, and I've never tried Dralon. Do you like the feel? Yeah, it's actually a really nice feeling, very silky feeling yarn. It's got very, very little hair on the surface. Should be relatively easy to work with. I agree. I also like lightweight yarns, and lightweight acrylic is pretty rare. Not super rare, and actually a lot easier to find from Ice Yarns than most places. Looks like it'll probably be a little on the splitty side. It's got a lot of twist to it, so it might be okay, but the end is trying pretty hard to split down here. So, that's generally my first judgment is if the yarn is kind of falling apart at the end. Probably going to be a little on the splitty side, but I don't know. They're holding together pretty well as I untwist them. The plies don't want to separate super hard. So, might be okay. But yeah, I actually think it's a really quite a nice yarn. I don't know, very soft, very silky. Would be good for a lot of things. So again, it's got a lot of twist and it's a pretty fine yarn, so you're gonna get beautiful drape, but probably not like that ultra plush feeling. Just because it is a finer yarn and there's not a lot of squish to the yarn. So very good for shawls and scarves and things like that. Would be very nice for fingerless gloves, things like that. Probably not like a big hood or something that you want to be like real squishy, where heavier yarns are more appropriate. Yeah, bamboo does seem to be pretty splitty, and yeah, I don't think that's as splitty as like the white yarn that I pulled out before, which looked like it wanted to split pretty badly on me. All right. Moving on to silk cotton. This is 32% silk, 68% cotton. It's a 50-gram ball, 120 meters. They are calling it a number 2 fine weight yarn. That seems roughly correct. Verging on a little, like I would probably have guessed DK weight on this. Though when you get into silk and cotton, my numbers get a little bit off there. So, I could believe a number 2 weight yarn. I could say that it's probably somewhere about a 2.5. Is probably closer to accurate. What do they call this? This is called Orchid Lilac. So it looks like it's 2 different color, like a 2-tone yarn. And Orchid Lilac is probably a pretty accurate name for it. It's very similar. So they called this color Orchid, and I would say one of the plies is roughly this color. And then the other one is a little bit grayer than this lilac. So you get this really nice muted dust color, purple and pink, and it's a very nice yarn. It would be a really nice shawl. Would potentially be a very nice hat for somebody like undergoing chemo, because it is ultra soft, and nothing remotely scratchy about it. So I know there's always a little bit of a challenge choosing fibers for hats like that. Shawl, a scarf, anything that you'd want to keep right close to you, or fingerless gloves, anything. Like it just feels so soft and silky. If you use it for something that's going to get a lot of wear, I suspect it's going to pill a bit. I can kind of feel that the fibers are smooth and silky, but, you know, wanting to come out of the yarn a little bit. So you might have a little bit of pilling problem with the cotton in here. But that's not atypical of cotton. So I said fingerless gloves. I could be convinced that was a poor recommendation. And that maybe those would pill a little bit too much. But wow, it's really, really super soft. So, big fan of this. I would definitely get more of this. I don't know what I'd use it for, but sitting and petting it like this. Very nice. Again, silk cotton. Ice Yarns is often very literal in their naming. So it's got silk, it's got cotton, it's silk cotton. Like, no fanciness in the naming scheme. Oh, this is one that I was really excited for. This is actually the reason that we put the order in. So this is Ice Yarn's hand-dyed sock. It smells funky. It smells like vinegar, probably from setting the dyes. But none of the Ice Yarns really have any sort of smell, mostly because I'm sure they're produced at an industrial scale and rinsed like crazy. But since these are hand dyed, they've got a little bit more hand dyed quality. it's not great. It's not particularly high quality. So it is superwash. It says superwash wool. It is not probably superwash merino, which is what I typically buy. So it's 75% superwash wool, 25% polyamide, which is nylon. A 75-25 blend would be pretty typical for any indie dyed yarn. They're more often 80-20, but 75-25 is not unheard of. It does feel like it would soften quite a bit with some use or with some wash and blocking. It's not a bad yarn, but it's more reminiscent of like BFL, which is a coarser yarn that usually has a bit more stitch definition, and less reminiscent of a really nice plush merino. Really pretty colors. What's interesting here is I am about 99% sure that this is a gradient dyed. Yeah. I did not realize that these were supposed to be gradient. Apparently I didn't look at the... Was there a sample of these worked up?
I think you could just see the end of it.
Okay. So what tells me that this is gradient and not like a speckled or a variegated color is that if you follow the color changes, they go around all the way. And then there's more than one color change present in, like, if I grab a section this way, there's a section of all pale blue, there's a section of speckled, and then there's a section of this darker variegated. And so I suspect that this yarn would work up from light blue to speckled to this dark blue variegated color. If this was a yarn that was going to work up speckly or just regular variegated yarn, in any one section, if you grab a chunk, the entire chunk would be roughly the same color or roughly the same base color with some speckling or some color. And if you grabbed a different chunk next to it, it might be a different color. But yeah, this is surprisingly a gradient yarn. And so I think each of these is a 100-gram ball, which is interesting because it's 100 grams, but if it's a 100-gram gradient, it means that you're going to work from one end to the other of the gradient, and then if you want to add a second ball, you're going to start over. And then, you know what I mean? Like, it would be very difficult to extend the gradient unless you picked the colors apart, basically. Which is going to a little bit ruin your gradient effect.
So, actually looking at it on their website, it doesn't look like a gradient.
Yeah. This ball is definitely gradient dyed. Like, we can and we probably should work it up, but the way these colors are laying, unless, I will say it with a small caveat, it could be a self-striping yarn.
That's what it suggests.
Okay, is it...
It has a tag on the webpage that says self-striping.
Okay. It could be a striping sock yarn, which would work up very long sections of color. It would be very difficult to tell a self-striping sock yarn, so a yarn that would work up with chunks of stripes that go back and forth, would be very, very difficult to tell the difference between that and a gradient without actually wrapping the ball from this hank into a ball of yarn. As soon as you wrap the ball, it would be very obvious. But because it's like a circle, it's pretty hard right now by eye to follow the color changes. So it might be... Yeah, I've got a few more to open, but if we get towards the end and I want to pull out my stuff, I can wind this up. So I guess I should say this yarn is either a gradient or a self-striping sock yarn. meaning that if you work it in a very short round, like something roughly the width of a sock, you're going to get thin bands of color back and forth between multiple colors, like a striped sock. That's as opposed to if you work it in a shawl, you're still going to get bands, but they're not going to be like a sock. You know what I mean? They're going to be thinner and probably like unbalanced, because as your shawl grows, you'll end up eating up a whole stripe in just a section. And so it's going to work up a little bit weird if you make this into a shawl. If it's a yarn that's designed to make socks self-stripe. So, overall, for the price, I think this was $13.99 for the bag. Something in that $10.49? Okay. So it was $10.49 for the bag. I think we paid more, unless you're actually looking at the order. Okay. $10.49 for the bag is, you get 400 grams of hand-dyed yarn. Like, you really can't beat it. It is not the most amazing wool sock yarn that I've ever felt. Would it be fine for socks? Absolutely. Would it be fine for a shawl? Probably, though the color scheme might be a little bit weird to work up. It feels a lot like BFL, which is Blue-Faced Leicester, which is a not very soft yarn, but has really nice stitch definition. I've made shawls out of BFL that look really nice. One of my favorite shawls is BFL. But it's not like ultra nice merino wool. So, for $11 for the entire bag, or $10.49 or whatever it was, you're not gonna get the highest quality merino hand-dyed wool. You just aren't. Normally when I buy sock yarn, I expect to pay between $20 and $28 a ball, with the average being about $25. So 4 for $10 is an amazing deal. But I guess just keep that in mind. It's a pretty nice yarn. It's not going to floor you, but if you have a project in mind, or you want to try something out that you've never tried before, you've never worked 100-gram fingering weight shawl or something like that, and you want to give it a whirl, this is probably a really good place to start. And still very pretty colors and reasonable yarn to work with. The little bit of nylon in there does make it good for socks and helps it keep its stretch. So, it's not necessary for shawls, but it's pretty necessary in most cases for socks. Let's see. Yaya Creations thanked me for explaining the gradient versus speckled. Sophie asked if I'm still working on the Red Heart Heat Wave video. We spent a long time like trying to pick apart Heat Wave and really get a good feel for it. And then we didn't really progress with that video. Unfortunately. We really should try and get what we can out of that.
I think it's towards the summer.
Yeah, we ran into some problems because I think it was at the end of the summer and we really needed to see it against the cold, and then we didn't do it this winter. I probably just a combination of being busy and then like winter kind of turned into craziness. Here late spring, early spring, all of spring. And so, yeah, Heat Wave kind of fell off of our radar, but, I would really like to get to the bottom of Heat Wave and really understand it. Especially if Red Heart continues to hang on to that yarn. It's relatively interesting. You did end up making a hat that was like striped out of Heat Wave and, non-Heat Wave. We just tried to find I think we went with the black one. And so it was black heat wave and then black not heat wave yarn back and forth.
It wasn't back and forth.
Oh, was it not back and forth? It was just a chunk. Okay. So it was half and half. And he just used the circular knitter and switched yarns in between. And it was interesting because I didn't dislike Heatwave by feel. Like just in the ball and handling it, I was like, yeah, it's fine. Like it's just a basic acrylic. And then next to a basic acrylic, it felt like garbage. So it was really interesting because I didn't think it was a bad yarn at all. And then just a regular acrylic felt a lot nicer worked up next to it. Like you could really feel the difference. Even though the colors and the yarn looked basically the same, the actual texture of the yarn was very different when it was worked up. So, but that's really where we left it. We tried to do some stuff with the thermal imaging and it just wasn't showing up. Partly, I think, against the ambient temperature around was too high. We didn't have a super cold winter either, so it would have been tricky anyway.
We were also finding weird things that we couldn't explain, like acrylic heating up.
Yeah.
Like non-heatwave acrylic heats up quite a bit in the sun.
Yeah, we did try a number of experiments with heat wave on the tabletop with what should have been a light bulb that should have caused it to heat up. And we were having the other acrylic yarns also heat up.
Actually, there was one.
And so we were struggling to get a really good
one of the
video.
Other fibers also took off. When we put it outside in the sun, it was like the wool ended up being the hottest of all of them, and it made no sense.
Yeah, I do remember wool was giving us some trouble, and well, I mean, it would make sense that wool would be the hottest, like wool should be, but not necessarily heated by the sun. Should just retain heat better. So there was a lot of weirdness around the heat wave, and we ended up struggling to make a video that made sense. But I think our general conclusion was we didn't see an amazing difference in the few experiments we ran, and we were hoping for some opportunity to look at it under different conditions. So my end to your question is maybe we're still working on that video. We'll see what happens. All right, I got a few more yarns in here. This is one that I already opened in another color, but we'll show this one too. This is Alara. It's a 50-50 cotton acrylic blend. This is the one that I said looks like it would be very splitty, but when I tried to untwist it, it didn't participate. So it's holding together much better than it looks like it should. This is powder pink in this Alara yarn. Really nice. Sorry, I've got the hiccups. Really nice feeling yarn. Very nice, like ballerina pink here. So, would be a very nice baby pink. Would probably make a absolutely lovely like baby sweater or booties or something like that. I have plans to make a amigurumi bunny that a friend of mine requested, and put a ballerina tutu on it, and so that's the intent on this yarn, was to buy the color to put the ballerina tutu on. And along with that, the bunny is supposed to be gray, and so I've got this Amigurumi Cotton that I ordered, which is very similar. Move that out of the way. This is the color gray. Nothing interesting. Let's see. This is one that I have not opened. It is 60% cotton, 40% acrylic. Number 2 fine weight yarn. 50 grams, 160 meters. That's about right. 320 meters. Yeah, I'd put that somewhere between a fine weight and a DK weight. And yeah, so really nice, smooth feeling yarn. It's exactly what I wanted for amigurumi. Fine weight. I like a little bit finer weight for amigurumi. Worsted is fine as well, but I think the stitches look a little bit nicer and neater when they're worked with a finer yarn. You get a smaller final animal, but it is what it is. But yeah, targeting something to replace sheep stonewashed in amigurumi, and I think this is a good option here. Doesn't have that same stonewashed or heathered look, but is just a really nice, solid feeling yarn. Feels very tough, like it will hold up to the stress of the stitches. Because when you're making little stuffed animals, you really kind of crank on your yarn a lot. So a cotton acrylic blend is a really nice option for that. So very happy with this. I think I got this in a couple of colors. So let me pull out what's left in here. All right, we'll talk about that one in a second. I wanted to find all of the Amigurumi Cotton because I thought I bought it in a couple colors. Looks like a weird pink, purple color. And roughly skin tone color. Oh, weird. Okay, well this is interesting. Get to the bottom of this in a second. So in Amigurumi Cotton, I got the colors, this just says light, or it actually just says LIG. I assume this is either like a light lilac or a light pink, or I don't know what the actual color is called. I'll take it out of the bag so you guys can see it a little bit better. Joyce just joining us. Absolutely, you can watch from the beginning. Like I've said in the past, if you're going to watch from the beginning, I would give it time to render the whole video, which takes roughly an hour, so that you can watch it in a little bit better quality than the one that's available immediately after. But please do watch back from the beginning so you can see all of the fun stuff we've been opening here. Light Orchid is the color. This one's actually printed on the label. So I've got a really nice pinky purple, a gray, and what appears to be a very nice skin tone color. I've mentioned before that I've had trouble matching, had trouble finding a really nice Caucasian skin tone for like dolls. And this is a pretty good one. This one is called, it just says DAR. Let's see if it has a better name on here. It does not. So interestingly, there's a sticker over another sticker that says Baby Summer. And this is Amigurumi Cotton. So I don't know if they rebranded a yarn or if they just ran out of things and they just put a fresh sticker over. Kind of looks like they rebranded. It had the same fiber content. So if you have some yarns or saw some called Baby Summer, they might be exactly the same yarns. And actually I'm noticing that all of them have tags that say Baby Summer with stickers over them now that say Amigurumi Cotton. So I think this one was called Dark Beige. And it's a very nice beige. And I think a reasonable skin tone. Yeah, probably not with mine. My skin is so pink. But I think would be a fine skin tone for a doll. And then again, I got pink and gray. Well, pinky purple. So that's all the colors I got in Amigurumi Cotton. It came in like 25 colors or possibly more than that. I had to sort of rein myself in and not order all of them. So when I pick a couple of lines that I really like, I probably will go back and get a few more colors. But there were so many different cotton acrylic blends that were all kind of similar that I had to kind of pick and choose. So I got 2 of the Alara, 3 of the Amigurumi Cotton, and a couple of these Amigurumi Cotton 25s. As far as I can tell, the Amigurumi Cotton and the Amigurumi Cotton 25s are basically the same, except that the 25s come in 25-gram balls. This color, on the other hand, is a terrible skin tone. It is super, super yellow. Kind of a buttercup type of color. This was called Cream. So I'm not super surprised that it's not perfect for what I was looking for. It'll be useful for something else, but is much yellower than I wanted for that use. Couple more people joining. Welcome. Thank you for joining. You are joining towards the end of the stream, and so please stay and hang out with us. But then also, if you're interested, when YouTube gets the video uploaded, it'll be available and you can watch the whole thing. So feel free to stay and hang out, but if you want to see all of the other stuff we opened, it usually takes about 40 minutes to an hour for that to get totally loaded up. So the colors that I have here are not on the packaging. I've got a blue and a cream here. And again, these are 25-gram balls. They're still calling these number 2 weight, fine weight yarn or a sport weight. 50% cotton, 50% acrylic. So they are slightly different than the Amigurumi Cotton, which I think was a 60-40 blend. These are a 50-50 blend, 25 grams, 80 meters. And
Is that the one that you got like 16 balls of?
yeah, so you get 8 in a bag instead of you get 2, 4, 6, 8 in a bag instead of 4. So the Amigurumi Cotton you get 8 or 4 of. These ones you have to buy 8 of, but they're little bitty. So they're actually only 200 grams per bag, rather than the 400 that most yarns are. But yeah, I got these in 2 different colors, and so it ends up being 16 balls of yarn without really, like, trying at all. 2 colors and you get 16 balls of yarn, so, it's part of how you end up ordering 160 balls of something from Ice Yarns, because you gotta buy 8 or 10 of something at a time. So, really, really nice, soft feeling yarn. Feels tough enough to, like I said, stand up to amigurumi stitches. I am wishing that it was heavier. It will do very nicely and make nice, tiny, beautiful stitches, but it's going to lend itself to making much smaller items, or needing a ton of stitches in order to make a reasonable sized doll. But I think will work very, very well. This blue is actually very pretty. It's got a little bit of a heather look to it. Kind of a light and dark. I think this was actually called denim, and it's a little like bluer than denim, but it has a denim look to it. Huh? It's called jeans blue. Okay. It's a bit more sky blue than I would call something jeans colored. But is very pretty. Cream's a little yellow for my taste, but not bad. All right, so we're to the last 2 things. This yarn here is a really pretty navy blue, called Navy. This is Camilla Cotton. It's 100% mercerized cotton. It's a number 2 weight yarn, 50 grams, 125 meters. That puts it at 250. 2's probably fine for cotton, because like I said, cotton's a little on the heavy side. So yeah, it's probably about a 2 weight. It's mercerized cotton. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's super, super slippery like you'd expect. Has that beautiful shine to it. Really, really nice yarn. Reminds me very much of the sheep's katana yarn, which I don't remember if it's mercerized or not. I think it almost has to be for the amount of colors that it comes in. But it's a really nice yarn for amigurumi, and this reminds me very much of that yarn. I cannot tell you how nice and slippery and smooth this yarn feels. I just want to make like everything out of it. Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. It does look like sewing thread because it's mercerized and all the sewing threads are mercerized. It doesn't look anything like you'd expect cotton to ever look like, but it's so shiny and beautiful. There's a really nice, so this is called navy, but there's a really nice, like, I don't want to say green hue, but like, it's like teal background or something. I can't really explain it, but it's much prettier than navy. My favorite color in a box of crayons is cerulean. And it's very reminiscent of a very, very dark cerulean. Very, very pretty yarn. So I doubt that it does it justice, but like we have nice lights in the studio, and under these lights I can see the color is just really, really stunning. So 6 balls of this in this particular order. So 250 grams total is the minimum on that. And I don't think these were super cheap. Like nothing is that expensive from Ice Yarns, but I want to say these were probably closing in on $1 a ball or something like that. $7 for that. So a little bit over $1 a ball for these. They're probably worth it. They're super, super nice. Mercerized cotton is a little bit tricky to work with because it doesn't have almost any real stretch to it, and it's got that super high sheen. Doesn't really suck up water like you'd expect normal cotton to. And it's usually finished a little bit more so that it's all silky and smooth, and so you can't really use it for like dishcloths and things like that, but it's really pretty. The other thing that I did not expect at all is Ice Yarns also sent me a mask, which is an odd thing, and it's really, really strange. I think it's made of foam. It's pretty odd. It's basically like 2 sheets of neoprene sewn together. Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's kind of swimsuity looking. But a very nice gesture on their part. It smells terrible. Like it smells like plastic, and yeah. But it was a very nice gesture on their part to send a little free thing. And there's like a note in here that says, "Stay safe and strong. We love you." The mask has been sterilized. You can perceive a light odor. The odor will vanish in a while. You can wash it if you don't feel comfortable. It's elastic and strong. It will not tear. And then there's wash instructions. So, a gift from Ice Yarns is what it says at the bottom. So, as a general rule, I think I probably would wash a face mask that comes internationally. So, though I guess it's had time to sit and probably is safe, but I'm not going to actually put it on. So, like I said, it does smell pretty funky. I thought it was like plastic, but now it smells like peanut oil. Or sesame oil? Actually, it smells like sesame oil, which is odd. But, yeah, so there's the pile. I'm probably just going to push these off the table rather than draw them over. There's the heap of yarn. So hopefully you enjoyed watching all of this unboxing, got some opinions on some ice yarns. I'll hang out for a few minutes if you guys have any questions about anything in particular, crochet related or related to any of these yarns that I opened tonight if you've got additional questions. And otherwise we'll probably wrap up for the evening. So, I'm not even sure where to start here. I just mean in general, like where I'm gonna start with what I want to use first. I really want to use this blue yarn for something, but I don't know what it's gonna be. Might be... I wonder if it's too matchy-matchy with my... So, my dress for my sister's wedding is navy blue. And I wonder if it's, like, if I can wear a navy shawl with a navy dress. Might be too much navy. But otherwise it would be really cool as a, like, open summer shawl. Because I'll probably get sunburnt in the time that it takes her to get married outside. So, then I'll be freezing at night when the sun sets. And so maybe I'll end up turning it into some sort of cotton shawl that'd be nice for the summer. Wanda's got a question. Does a crochet item have to be blocked every time it's washed or just after you finish making it? That's really a matter of the individual item. So if you make an acrylic cowl and then you wash it and you just lay it flat to dry, it will probably be perfectly fine. If you make something that's relatively stitch dense, you probably don't need to block it every time. If you make a very open, lacy wool shawl, it's probably going to need to be blocked every time it's washed. Just because the lacy construction will collapse on you. Not totally back to where it was at the beginning, but will never be as open as right after it comes off the blocking mats. So the minute you pull it off the blocking mats, it starts to collapse a little bit. And then as you wear it, the lace will shrink back and eventually sort of make its way back to a bit collapsed. And so when you go to wash it and you get it wet, that lace will, sort of relax a little bit and it won't be as open and lacy. So it's sort of depends on the yarn, depends on the project. Acrylic doesn't really take a block, but it's worth blocking because it will make your stitches all pop into place and they're not really going to move back with wear. And so I would say acrylics and most of your dense stitches, I wouldn't worry about blocking every time you wash it. Open lacy shawls, I would probably block every time. And if it's something sort of in between, you're going to have to kind of use your judgment when you wash it. I always hand wash and lay anything that I made out of yarn. I always lay it flat to dry at the very least. I am not a big fan of putting handmade items in the dryer, even if it says you can. With a small exception, I will run them through the dryer sometimes to soften them up with a dryer sheet after they've dried on a line. So sometimes things get a little bit stiff and I'll just run them through the dryer for 5 minutes tops with a dryer sheet just to kind of loosen them up. But yeah, so something like this shawl, I would not block every time I wash it. I would just lay it out. Because there's not really any openness or structure, you know what I mean? Anything that I'm trying to keep open. Whereas this shawl, I would absolutely block every time I wash it. Because the lace will just not look as nice if you don't block it. And you can see some of that where I was saying that it'll collapse. Like even when I hold it like this, you can see the top of the lace is not as open as the lower lace. So when you block it, you open these guys back up and have them look a little nicer for a little while. They'll continue to collapse on you. So that's just the nature of lacy things without starch. So hopefully that helps. But it's item dependent. But yes, if you want, something to be really open and lacy or look just a particular way. Another example is if you block an edging very intentionally. So a few weeks back, I blocked a shawl on stream, and I made a decision on the edging. It could have been rounded, but I decided to make it pointy. As soon as that goes in water, all those points are going to go away. Because the stitch pattern didn't make it pointy, I made it pointy. The stitch pattern just had a space where it made it very easy to make it into peaks. But as soon as those get wet and go back, into the water, they're going to relax back down. They might keep a little bit of a pointiness to them that they didn't have before, but they're not going to be like sharp points like they are after I block them. So hopefully that helps a little bit, but yeah, lacy things blocked them every time. More solid things or primarily acrylic things probably only need to block the once. And yeah, so with that, I probably am going to go ahead and wrap things up for tonight. I'm not sure what we'll stream about next week. I don't have any big unboxings planned. There's no yarn on order, which means it probably wouldn't arrive in time for something next week. And I think I bought all the yarn, like just all of it. I think everybody who's got new yarn out, we've shown everything that we could get our hands on. So, we've done all the Lion brand new yarns. We've done all the Premier new yarns. And this is a whole bunch of the ice yarns, spring stuff. So, probably hold off on yarn unboxings for a while. I am still holding out a small amount of hope that Wisconsin Sheep and Wool will still happen this fall. And so I might still get to go to a fiber festival yet this year. But otherwise I don't have any big plans to spend a whole lot on more new yarn. At some point I'm going to actually have to try and work some percentage of this up into projects. So that is that. Thank you all for joining me tonight. Hopefully you enjoyed the unboxing and seeing all the new yarns and found something that you're interested in giving a whirl. And otherwise, we normally stream at about 8 o'clock on Tuesday nights, and that's 8 o'clock Central Time. If we're going to cancel the stream or we're going to move it to another day, I try and post on Facebook, Instagram, and on the YouTube community tab. So if you show up around 8 o'clock and it doesn't look like the stream is happening, check one of those places and we'll have posted on one of those locations. If we haven't posted anything, bear with us. We're probably working through some technical stuff and we're just running late. If you ever have questions outside of a live stream or that isn't really on one of the topics of my videos, please send me a message. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Experiments in Crafting. Otherwise, also feel free to just leave a comment on a video and I will do my best to answer those. I kind of answer things all in a big batch, so I just caught all up on comments. So hopefully if you left me a comment, I got you an answer recently. And I'll try and do better on answering those more as they come in. But yeah, if you need me, send me a message on Facebook, Instagram, or leave me a comment. I guess the last thing to mention is if you're not a subscriber and you just happened across this unboxing tonight, if you hit the subscribe button and then go over to notifications, there's a little bell and you can click that and turn on the notifications. There's also a little drop down next to it that you can turn personalized to all, so you get all the notifications from the channel. Those will primarily be when we post a new video or when we're going live. So you'd get an email at that time, so you got a little reminder. And otherwise, everyone have a great rest of your week, and hope to see you next week. Bye.